Well, good morning, everybody. As we get started here today, just I want to give you a quick preview of what we're going to cover. After covering some of the damage from this mesoscale convective system, I guess we're calling it our mesoscale convective vortex that hit Florida. It looked more like a hurricane, honestly. I want to cover some of the new stuff with Graphcast QL. That's the new machine learning method that has been developed by Google and is now being run by the ECMWF. We're going to do some model comparison there. I then want to move to kind of the extent of the colder air that we're expecting to come across the country as we approach Thanksgiving. And then we got to talk about some of the shifts in the pattern in Brazil. And we're going to finish with some new long-range data. So here we go. You've been watching an animation of the last 10 hours or so of some of the rainfall as measured by radar here. And this low that's developed right along the Gulf Coast has been quite potent. Did a lot of damage yesterday, not only with flooding, but also with wind damage down here in southern Florida. And it's been just a very fascinating system to watch evolve this week. And you've seen it in each of my videos, but this is still sitting and lingering here, even after delivering this much rainfall. So we kind of zoomed in on Florida here, and through 5 a.m. Central Time this morning, so 6 a.m. East Coast time, there are parts of southern Florida that did pick up, according to some radar estimates, between 6 and 10 inches of rainfall. I will wait later today to see the verification from some of the rain gauges, but this was a tremendous amount of rain. Now, in addition to that, we've been fascinated, I think, by this cutoff low that's sitting and spinning off the coast of California. Last time as the sun was setting, we can still see the center of that circulation. In fact, there are two of them here as they're sitting and spinning. And we've talked about this all week as the system that's finally going to move into the West Coast this weekend, but we need to add up some of the new rainfall totals for the West to see what can be expected out of that deep low that's still sitting off the coast. So as we look at it, the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation, there's been a lot of the country that's seen nothing out of this. We did watch some cold rain and some snow move into this part of the country. And again, we've just been watching the Gulf Coast, very heavy rainfall hitting some of these regions that desperately need it. And if we take it from 72 hours and just back it out to a week, remember our deep area of deepest drought in the country is right now in Louisiana, Mississippi. So to see this rainfall coming in here is just an absolute blessing to these folks after enduring such incredible drought. But we've watched drought redevelop in places. When you kind of stare at this map, you can find them pretty easily here over the last, not just 2 weeks, but 6 weeks in some places. And there's a lot of the country that's in this deepest shade of red that's not seen precipitation in the last 2 weeks. So they haven't yet measured it in the month of November. And it's been extremely dry in those particular areas. We've watched the soil moisture values drop off pretty dramatically because of that. We continue to keep an eye on the Mississippi River, which is still around 8 feet below low stage at Memphis. And so this has not made the recovery as quickly as hoped here in the month of November. But I also just wanted to look at a bigger stat. So I decided to make a graphic here using the Mesonet site from Iowa State. It's one of my favorites, I show it all the time. But this is the year-to-date precipitation ranks. And, as I look at this, my eye is drawn to these really, really dry areas. There's a few of them here across the country, and with the driest being down here in Louisiana. So even with that rain that came through, this climate reporting district down here in southeastern Louisiana is having its driest year on record. We also look at this and see, remember some of the flooding earlier in the year in New England, and then remember back in May and June, the flow was anomalously out of the east, which is what delivered such incredible rains for parts of our high plains. That was really one of the main driving factors behind some of these very high numbers here. Now, there's been other events, but that's one of the reasons, And then we had the January cyclone, we had the March deep cyclone, and then we had Hillary, followed by the deep trough that hit during the Burning Man Festival, and that's what's driven the West. So I just thought it'd be fun to kind of go back and look at some of these things. There's, of course, so much more to diagnose with this map, but hopefully just wanted to give you kind of a taste of what we look at here. Okay, going forward, this is some of the new stuff. Just kind of hit the news yesterday, and I thought we should just spend some time talking about it here. I want to be very clear about what I think the future of, some of the new machine learning, forecast methods supported by new artificial intelligence or access to artificial intelligence is going to do in my industry. It's gonna really add a whole new dimension to our forecasting and our forecasting skill and accuracy. It's going to be complementary to these big models run on supercomputers like the ECMWF you've been staring at here. So this is really exciting, and you people that are watching, you get the benefit of this, and you're the beneficiary, I guess you could say, and it's going to be really amazing to see this all take shape. So I've been talking over a map It looks at the next 10 days of precipitation. This is from this early morning 0Z run from the European model. And what I want to show you next is where you can go and access some of the new Graphcast QL forecast data from the European Center. They're, right now, I believe the only one's doing this. It was supported by Google. I tried to download it yesterday and get it running, but I'm going to need more time to do this. So here's where I want you to go. Go to charts.ecmwf.int, charts.ecmwf.int. When you get here, you have kind of a menu on the left that you can start to narrow down what you're looking for. And what I want you to do is come down here and click on Experimental Machine Learning Models, and that'll kind of redistribute the little thumbnail, over here on the right. Now, what I'm interested in today, you can look at all the titles if you want, but what I'm interested in today, just scroll down to the bottom, and I want you to find this one right here. This would be the total accumulated precipitation. When you click on this, you'll first land on a map of Europe, but you have the options over here to change where you want to see, and today my forecast is about North America, so we're going to click on North America. Now, you can play it, or you can just grab the icon. I'm just going to do this real quick, take it all the way out here to a 10-day forecast, since that's what we're going to focus on. You'll notice there's no color bar. You should turn that on. Just click down here. It will be in millimeters, so as you look at this, you'll need to do the conversion in your head if you're in the U.S. and you prefer inches. So just a quick reminder, 25 millimeters is an inch, all right? So what this is showing us is that over the next 10 days, and there are going to be some places that fill in with some of that moisture, and a lot of it's going to be kind of in this corridor with this next system that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes with better detail. But what I'm doing now is I want to show you the comparison between this and the operational run from the European model. So very quickly, the way that the machine learning works is they trained a data set, they trained the model on a data set. That data set's called the ERA 5 data set. And what they did was they went back, and every time they do a new run, they start with what's called the model initialization, the data that feeds into the model. And then the machine learning part of this goes back and now constructs a forecast based off of history. It's very computationally expensive to train the model, but then very computationally inexpensive to run it. So why hasn't this happened before? Well, we needed advanced computing to do this, because to train the model requires, just a tremendous amount of effort computationally. But now to run it, let me tell you something. It runs so fast. It can run on simple computers. I'm talking like your cell phone could run this. And the beauty of it is that because of the speed at which it runs, it takes under a minute now to run a 10-day forecast using the machine learning method, that you're able to now do potentially thousands of ensemble members. And so this is super exciting, for us, for me, and what I do. So I keep kind of talking over these maps. But let me show you the difference. It's 1/4 degree resolution versus 0.1 degree resolution from the operational run. So as we kind of compare the two, this would be the machine learning forecast for the next 10 days. This is the one that's run on the supercomputer now. This is the operational dynamical model. You can see the differences here. All right. So one thing I take note of is the farther into the Midwest, the extent in the European model, dynamical model here, and versus this. You have much more moisture coming into this area in the machine learning, and that's going to be something we're going to have to work on. Is the machine learning technique will likely be a smoother forecast, especially the farther out you go. Since machine learning is designed to minimize RMSE, or root mean square error, it might blend, it might regress more toward the mean in the longer term forecast to minimize error, okay? So just something to be thinking about here. But overall, this is kind of fun to compare the two. And we see some potentially heavy precip coming into California. Of course, that low sitting off the coast there. And then there's kind of a corridor in through here that's going to start to work against some of that longer term drought. Now, in addition to this, you can look at the temp. You can look whatever you want, but it's just, I think it's fun to be able to see this new stuff here. So again, the machine learning technique, and here's the operational run just for comparison. So again, there is a resolution difference right now, 1/4 degree versus 0.1 degree, the higher resolution being that's run on the supercomputer. Okay, next. Pattern is really, I think, still being dictated by the tropics and its influence on the Pacific jet stream. So I'm going to stay on this horse until it kicks me off. But what I'm seeing here is that the Pacific North American pattern, which is being set up by the West Pacific Oscillation, the East Pacific, it's all just describing the position of the jet stream in the Pacific. The biggest change is that it's now staying above the average line, at least out for the next 15 days. So that was not the case when we were looking at these forecasts over the last 10 days. We actually were looking at more of better flow into the northwest and more troughs of low pressure, which were going to completely change the pattern around the rest of the country. So what you need to think about when I show you this index is this means the jet stream's a bit farther to the north and there's ridging in the west. So that changes the whole pattern across the country, and it looks something like this. We're going to look top down on the planet on the North Pole, and as we play this forward through Thursday into Friday and eventually into Saturday, that's when the low finally comes on shore here in the West Coast. Now, meanwhile, a much deeper low is trying to form between the Hudson Bay and parts of Ontario, Quebec, and New England, and this is going to help take whatever's left of this kind of would-be tropical system, pull it north at the same time that there's a low trying to go this weekend through New England. So we're going to take a close look at that in a few seconds. But as we work our way into next week, this was the time frame when I'm on Monday this week, I'm like, oh, Omega Block, it's coming. Well, it's gone. There's high over low. There's ridging in the west. That has sent this trough much farther to the south. It's disconnected from the really cold air to the north, and therefore it doesn't quite have the same pull on the Gulf moisture, nor does it have the same northern extent. So from Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, that's when this whole setup delivers big ridge west. That's the big positive PNA. That's going to take the cold air and just thrust it here into the south and southeast, right through the Midwest into New England. And this is what's going to set up a pretty cold week next week as we go toward Thanksgiving. So we get out there 1 week from now and we say, well, how does the pattern shape up beyond that? And the ensemble forecast here, now remember, this is a 101-member ensemble we're looking at from the European. That's currently the biggest ensemble we have of any global forecast model. It's 3 times the size of what we run here in the U.S. Just imagine when this has got 1,000 members in it, and we can start to just dissect them all in different ways. I can't wait for that. But by day 10 into day 11, we just see the atmosphere kind of getting stuck in that kind of 4-spoke idea, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's a very interesting configuration on this pattern, taking us out there to the end of November. So can we get 2 big systems out of it? No, I think we're going to get 1, but we're still waiting to see if we can see something vary in this pattern to give us a better shot at another system. All right, so to put all that together today, 6:05 a.m. when I was recording this Central Time, I'm actually still out here in Coeur d'Alene, where it's still quite foggy. It's about 4:05 a.m. And what we're paying attention to here is some of the winds that's coming in with the next few systems. So we've got some high wind warnings that are already out, broad area of wind advisories. And this will be just the first of 2 wind events I think we're going to see here across the country. Some dense fog here, and this is all related to fire weather, that just how dry it's been with some of the stronger winds here. There's still a risk of having some wildfire. We come down to Florida, we still have the risk of the winds and the flooding down there as well. So let's just jump into some of the high-res models. Let's pick this up this morning and watch the setup here going forward throughout the day today. So I'm going to take you out to about midday. Here's our front. All around this, there is a strong pressure gradient, so very strong winds expected today. Isolated snow showers here, some rain getting out into parts of the high plains, and we're still watching what's going on here with the system curling up the coast of Florida. By the time we get into tonight, into early tomorrow morning, the front will be clearing through this path, from Lake Huron to the southern tip of Lake Michigan all the way down here to Oklahoma. So there's going to be a change in the temperatures pretty quickly here with this, and that's going to drop that front further to the east, and it's going to be a major part of the reason why this coastal low, which again, this is the same low that started here and meandered in this direction, went into southern Florida, and is now expected to move up the coast. But this front's going to keep it out to open ocean. We talked about that a lot this week. So high pressure drops in by the weekend in the middle part of the country. Could get some lake effect snow. And finally, this is Saturday morning, we're going to be watching the low that's been lingering off the coast make its move and finally get on shore. So we're going to watch for some weekend rains to really pick up here in California. Okay, so winds. Let's show you a couple things here. This is what we're expecting maximum accumulated wind gusts to be just through the end of the weekend. And so, like I said, some very strong winds coming in with this frontal boundary slicing through, stronger winds with the system off the East Coast, stay off the East Coast. But there will be some strong downslope winds, look at this, coming off of our mountains. We've got to pay close attention to. And that's not the only thing to say about it. In fact, let's do this as well. I'm going to take you to my website, ag-wx.com. Come over here to winds and inversions. You can now see all these maps. They're all just listed right here. I'd like to go to this one, though. So I'm going to show you the operational run of the European model soon, and if we play this out, there's the same forecast this weekend for the stronger winds, but take a look at the system next week right there. So as this system rolls out next Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's got a pretty big kick on it as well. So High Plains, be prepared for some really strong winds here as we work our way into next week as well. Okay, to show you those two systems, though, we've got to look at our model comparisons. So the GFS left, European right. These are the dynamical models. This is not statistical in approach. So let's just play it forward. And here we go toward Friday. Now, we've already seen up to here. So there's our front on Friday. And here is the low off the coast. And they're going to work together. And what we've now seen the models kind of clue in on is there may be some decent snow on the back side of this. This will be the first chance at snow in this area as this goes through into Saturday and Sunday. So you notice how the models are both trying to curl up some snow into parts of Maine, getting here to the Canadian Maritimes. Now, while that's occurring, we have our low that's moving finally, take you back here. This is on Friday evening, getting into Saturday, moving that one onshore. So finally getting this moisture into this area. It's in both forecast systems. We're looking at pretty widespread half-inch to maybe 1.25 inches across a big section of California out of this. Now that's the same low that by Sunday into Monday ejects over the mountains and starts to curl itself up early next week in the midsection of the country. And I know it's kind of faint, but you can see the spacing of the isobars here reflecting those stronger winds we mentioned. So here we start on Monday evening going into Tuesday morning, Tuesday midday, and Tuesday evening. And that low curls up quickly into parts of the eastern Great Lakes and up the East Coast, and along the way delivering some locally heavy rain here. Now, how far back to the west that rain gets was still kind of yet to be seen. You can see the models are about got the same timing on this, and they've also got bigger snows north. And so it's starting first here in the European, it'll follow in the GFS, but it helps that there's another low it's teaming up with here. And across this entire area, we're going to see some very strong winds throughout the Canadian Prairie from this. That's Tuesday. The colder that follows it just dives into the Midwest. I mean, look at this. Look how tight the spacing is here in these isobars. That's some cold air coming out of the north, and that's what's going to deliver the pretty nasty shock of some colder temperatures around Thanksgiving. Both models also next Thursday have a system entering the Pacific Northwest, and they have that one coming out into parts of Wyoming, in Colorado and Nebraska. I mean, it's a little faster in the GFS, which you expect, but it's still here in the European. And the GFS is like, hey, take some snow out with it. Now, we're 210 hours out. This is going to change a lot, but might as well look at it. And so I just want to keep an eye out for after Thanksgiving, what we could expect to come out of the plains here in terms of maybe some of the white stuff flying. So with that, we got to break all this down into a few different maps. Let's blow this up as big as we can. Let's take you out 1 week. Again, this is the dynamical model, total forecast of precipitation. That's the European. All right. Let's compare it to the GFS. So there's GFS, European. A lot of difference here. If I'm in Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Nebraska, look at the difference in the models here. In fact, we can just do that and make a map of that. So these colors represent where the GFS is wetter. So I see it really here in the Midwest where the GFS is wetter, and also here along the East Coast where the GFS is wetter. Everywhere else when this shade of color, the European model is our wetter model. So really out west, and part of this system that's going to roll through the Mid-South up to New England looks wetter there. Snowfall side of this, let's add it up. Okay, the European model, okay, we've got all that already in the forecast. Remember, we're going to watch for this over the weekend, some heavy snows here. And then we play into early next week when the low from California comes through, and we get this out there about a week. And that's when that system curls up, and look at the snow that we could be expecting in Ontario, Quebec here. Remember, my color bar starts at 4 inches with the blues, and so that takes you out a week. This is what the GFS says. So European, GFS. Now, the GFS, remember, had the second system, the one that snuck in like this, coming out right in through here following Thanksgiving. And we got to keep an eye on that. I mean, I'm only excited because I live close to this, and I'd like to see some snow. So to see this come through in the model, we'll just pay attention to it and look at the risk in the ensembles here in a second. Okay, so that's kind of your 10-day snowfall map, which is kind of a cardinal sin for an atmospheric scientist to show you, especially from the GFS, but whatever. Let's have a look at it. And by the way, if you're curious, this is what the European does. So there's some snow in the European out there as well. So we need to always do this and look at the ensembles. That's our best clue at those day 10 to day 15 outlooks. So we're going to start with the just total precip side of it. We're going to look here at the chance at getting under a half inch. So our dry areas still show up quite clearly here. Canadian Prairie, Northern Plains, down in the southwest into Mexico, and a lot throughout the Intermountain West. Still yet to see, the big precip chances coming through. We then say, well, who's on the wetter side of this? This is the chance. Oh, got a new model running. That's the tough thing about the West Coast. I always get this timed right when the new models come in. There we go. That's the 10-day from the 0Z. And now we've seen an increase in the probabilities here for getting more than an inch. And we've also seen them come up in California a little bit here as well. Let's take this from precipitation to only showing you the snow side of it. So how about the chance over the next 10 days at grabbing an inch of snow? And this is what the newest ensemble shows. And we go look for that heavier amount. This is best chance at 6 inches or more. So could be right in through here today. And then mostly here, kind of north of this line, cutting through the Great Lakes into New England. But I want to go to the GFS ensemble, and I want to take you back to the 0Z run and do the same thing, but let's go look at the chance for 1. Look at that, much higher in this area with that second system coming through next week. So just thought we'd kind of point that out. Okay, beyond this, this is what the forecast is holding about day 10. So some ridging in the west and just a piece of the jet stream here very strongly accelerating from Mexico out the east coast. And I'm telling you, if we could just get this to curl up more and build in a big area of high pressure in here, this would make for a massive setup for East Coast storm systems. We're very close to seeing something like that occur. But as it stands, as I've been telling you, flow that comes in like this is convergent, and that's why we see overall the week 2 forecast drier in this area. It's in all 3 models. Okay, why are we a bit wetter here? Well, we tend to get a little bit of upslope flow in this pattern. So you see near normal precip there, a little bit wetter in this CPC forecast. But all of the models are trying to go a bit drier in the west, largely due to the weaker flow and the ridging in the west. That's been something that's changed quite a bit in the forecast this past week. On the temperature side of it, we've now seen over the next 7 days the extent of that colder air that's approaching next Wednesday, Thursday. So our frost lines dropped much farther to the south, as you can see here. And if we go look at those temperatures, this is from the National Digital Forecast Database, what you're going to see from Thursday into Friday. Whoa, too fast there. There's the front coming through. So this is the, we're going to go from upper 60s to upper 40s, low 40s. So this is the 20 to 30 degree swing in temperatures very quickly in this area as the front drops in. Then we get into Saturday, the front moves east, takes with it its rain. This is the one that's keeping the low out to open ocean. Then you see a mild go of it for the weekend in much of the plains. And then we see going into next week, that's Monday into Tuesday, kind of the first drop of some colder air here coming in. And then we're going to watch from Wednesday into Thursday, even more of this coming across. Now, if you're curious, I want to show you the operational run from the European. 12 p.m. on Mondays when we're going to start this and watch the cold air advance by Tuesday morning. By Wednesday morning, that's 6 a.m. So look at that. That's your freeze line on Wednesday morning. And then if you're curious about your Thanksgiving Day temperatures at 6 a.m., you can see the freeze line in my map here, and that would be noon. So pretty chilly day for a lot of us here in the country. And some places up here in Montana, Canadian Prairie, we're down here in the teens, maybe even lower than that for temperatures. So that's that cold air coming in around Thanksgiving, and it continues to penetrate east. This is, if you're doing some Black Friday shopping, 6 a.m., there's your frost line out there on Friday. Pretty far to the south, really cold air coming in. I also want to show you this in terms of our 5-day moving average here. So there's your next 5 days from the European model. There's day 5 through 10, which gets you out to the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And here we try to finish the month and get into the beginning of December with warm west and cool east. Now, I've got to look more at this because there's still some evidence that this is going to flip around on us in December. But got to see more movement of the MJO, got to see changes. I got to see a lot to make that happen. I'll just keep analyzing it and reporting it to you in the longer range reports. Okay, in Brazil, just want to show you their main website, the National Institute of Meteorology here in Met. They have got a large area out here that is under these heat warnings. In fact, if you click on it and get the forecast data, what they call this, if it'll update, they say warning of a heat wave, degree of severity is great danger. So remember, this is translated from Portuguese, but they are really alerting folks to the exceptional heat that is right now in Brazil. But it has an expiration date on it, and that is primarily due to a front that's advancing. I mean, it started in Patagonia, and it's still moving its way toward Argentina and then into southern Brazil. So let's do the same thing we did with the with the U.S. forecast. This is the total accumulated precip predicted by the operational run of the GFS, not the machine learning one, and it takes you out 10 days. And remember, when you're up here at this 50 millimeter mark, that's about 2 inches. 100 millimeters is 4. So that front that's advancing continues to cause the flooding problems down in southern Brazil. That has not gone away at all. And then you look farther north, and we see that some of this area that's been so dry has got better chances at some relief. Here's the machine learning model. So operational, machine, smoothed, but still moisture coming in. To show it to you, this is the operational run again. So there's the front advancing. Look at all this extra rain. Domingo, this would be Sunday, okay, in Portuguese. Getting into Monday and Tuesday, that rain is spreading north by Wednesday into Thursday. And then by Friday of next week, we're really looking at some pretty decent rainfall trying to get back in this area. Now, how big of a Band-Aid does this put on the problems down there? That's yet to be determined, because this exceptional heat and drought is going to have an impact on crops in Brazil. And we need to continue to assess the overall pattern, because we seem to go right back to that drier look day 10 through 15. So this gets you out to December 1st. And look at the models have gone right back over to some drier conditions farther to the north, looking at the ensembles. So that's going to be a top story we'll continue to analyze now and through the weekend. All right. Finally, I just want to tell you something we'll talk about more tomorrow. We have a new forecast to be added to the other forecast models we've looked at. And this is the new December, January, February outlook from the the IRI multi-model probability forecast system. So when you look at this, this is taking in the dynamical models and statistically processing them. And I don't know that, I'll be honest with you, when I saw this morning, I was kind of like, yes, okay, finally. And I don't know if I'm becoming a bit guilty here of doing some wish casting. And what I mean by that is, I've made a case that this El Nino, while it's going to influence the pattern, I don't think we're going to get the typical El Nino pattern out of it, which is to rob big areas of the Northwest and the Midwest of rainfall while keeping the South extremely wet. And that's primarily based on the fact that I just don't think the El Nino is going to be the dominant signal. I think it'll at times do that, but I think there's going to be some other things at play. So when I saw this, that fit my narrative. And you understand, that's just my narrative. There's other looks at this we have to take. And I got to be very careful about confirming my own biases about what I want this winter to look like versus what the forecast should be overall. But the other thing that is a bit supportive of that is if you go from the precip look to the temperature look, this is really interesting. The extent of their probabilities here of being colder across a big section of the country. That's not typical El Nino. Typical El Nino is very mild compared to average here and colder than average south. So we'll look at this more, and between Friday and the weekend, I'll come up with a better analysis, and we'll pay closer attention to it as we start to watch this winter evolve overall. So that's it. I'll finish there. Got some exciting stuff just on our plates here to be watching, and with that, we'll leave it to tomorrow. So have a good one. Thanks.